Hello. Alright, so I do a basic tutorial here. Second time. First time the bot messed up. Hopefully this one will be good. Okay, so for our test, I picked the Axe of Godric just because I haven't messed with it yet. I don't normally use it. I'll walk you through the whole process here. So, you're going to need a few things for this just to get started on the basic mod. Grab here we go. We're going to need the anti-cheat toggler off of Nexus mods, or you can manually toggle it off. I've been told that if you have the Steam version of the game, you can also go offline on Steam. Um, However you want to do it, just make sure you're not online. You don't want to get banned for cheating, since this is technically cheating. Um, we're going to need the uh, mod engine 2, currently in preview 4. And you're going to need Yapped Rune Bear. Now, all three of these, there'll be a link in the description down below, and I'll walk you through getting set up. Alright, first thing you do is get the anti-cheat set up. You just go to this URL, which again is in the description. Download it, extract it to the, not to the Elden Ring folder, but to the game subfolder inside of it. And then just run toggle anti-cheat. And it'll disable easy anti-cheat, which will force you offline in the game. It should be pretty straightforward. Then you go to step 2, which is installing the mod engine 2. URL's there and in the description, like I said. You get the latest version, currently preview 4. Throw it in your game subfolder, same as before. Don't put it in the Elden Ring folder, put it in the game folder inside the Elden Ring folder. It should automatically make a mod subfolder in there, and a configuration file, which we're going to open for the next step. That's going to be called config_eldenring.toml, and you're going to open that in Notepad, right? And you can find that in the game subfolder where you extract it. And I'll go ahead and pull that up so you can see it. Okay, so this right here is the default config file. However, some of this might not be uncommented. If it has a little hashtag, the pound sign in front of it, it's disabled. So up at the top, you'll see external DLLs. That you can leave commented out like that, unless you have a DLL mod you want to load, in which case the instructions for that mod should show you how to do this. But we're not going to be doing any DLL mods for this, so you can ignore that. And then down below, you'll see a line that says mods equals, and then it'll have enabled true, name, whatever the mod name is, and then path equals mod. Now, you already have that default mod folder, and it should have that in there. And then you can name the mod whatever you want. It's not going to make a difference. But as long as this line right here is uncommented, it will load whatever mod you have in that mod folder that you just created. So we want to make sure it's like this, and then we just go to File, Save, and you can close it out. Okay, so once you do that, you're going to go back to your Elden Ring / game folder, back where you extracted the stuff, and you're going to find regulation.bin, which is a file that'll be in there. And this file updates every patch that comes out. So you'll need to repeat this process whenever the next patch comes out. But for now, you just grab it, copy it, and place a copy of it in the mod folder. So you're literally just going to copy it, not move it, copy it from the game subfolder to the game mod subfolder, which, as you can see, is all listed here. And essentially what that does is it makes the mod launch with those settings instead of the ones that came with the game. So we're going to modify the regulation.bin file that's in the mod subfolder, and we're going to leave the one in the game folder completely alone. That's just going to stay the way it was. Once you've made a copy of it, put it in the mod folder, we can proceed on to the next step, which is downloading Yapped Runebear, which, again, the URL will be in the description. All right, you're just going to extract that anywhere, and I'll show you what it looks like when you open it. But when you the first time you open it, it will pop up an error that you can just hit OK for, and you're going to have to go into the File menu in the upper left and click Elden Ring as your game, and it's going to ask where it is, and you're going to give it your Elden Ring directory wherever you installed it. You'll only have to do that once, and then from that point forward, it should run completely normal. Alright, and then once you've opened it, it should look something like this, right? It's got all the different variables and parameters and stuff like that. And you're just going to go to File. You're going to go to Open. It's not showing for you guys here. There you go. So it should look something like this, and you'll see that I'm in the game mod folder. Okay. And in this case, I have a backup here, the .bak. You ignore that. What you want is the regulation.bin file, right here. You just hit OK, or double click it. Give it a moment. Pop up a little thing that says primary file loaded. And now we are in the actual file itself. Now, you're not going to see all these labels here until you do this next step. You're going to go to Field Data, Import Stock Row Names. It's going to ask you, if a row already has a name, would you like to skip it? And you can hit yes to skip it, in which case, like, if it already has a name on there, it won't overwrite it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit yes to skip, but it shouldn't make a difference because you shouldn't have any names already in there. Alright, and that's when these names right here should appear. Now, I've already done it, but that's where you're at now. Alright, we're going to make some changes. I'm going to show you how this works. Since I'm modifying a weapon, and I do have a list of like what all these categories do. Since I'm doing a weapon, I'm going to go to Equip Param Weapon. Equip Param Accessory is for like talismans and stuff, and you can sort of play with these. I believe Gem is Ashes, goods is like regular items. Protector is armor, right? So if you want to modify armor, resistances, poise, stuff like that, you'd go to protector. But we're going to weapon because we're modifying Godric's Great Axe. Now, you don't want to have to scroll through all this stuff in the second field over here. You're going to want to filter it. So we click in this box up here. I'm going to type Godric and hit apply. Now, that might take a little longer on your computer. Don't be concerned, especially if you have a hard drive, it's going to take a little bit longer to filter that. So we've only got one result in this case because it's a unique name. I'm going to click it. Once you've clicked it, all this stuff over here should be populated. You can see, you can sort of guess what most of these do, but some of them you may have to look up or, ask on a Discord server or whatever it is you do to find out what some of these do. But I'll walk you through a few. So weight is the weight of the weapon. You could drop that down a little if you want. It doesn't have any effect on how hard it hits or anything like that. All it is how much weight it takes out. There's no repair or anything in this particular Souls game, so you can ignore all that. Sell price you can adjust, but you're probably not going to be selling this anyway. Now, the correction numbers here, and there's more down below, are the exact scaling numbers for the weapon. So if you look, this is a strength dex weapon, and it scales a little better with strength than it does with dex. Now, if I decide that I wanted to scale with everything, I can go in here and I can, I don't want it to be too overpowered, so I'm just going to put a lower number, a lower scaling in for each, but you can set this to whatever you want. Since I've set all four of these, that means it'll have, I believe, a C scaling with 30 for strength, dex, intelligence, and faith. And I'll do the same for arcane down below, but it's way down. There we are, correction arc right here. Also, if you have a weapon that has poison or bleed on it, you definitely want to make sure you put some sort of arcane scaling on it, because that will vastly enhance the amount of status buildup you get. If it doesn't have arcane scaling at all, then you're not going to get any extra status buildup. Alright, now directly below these we have guard absorption, and this is your guard numbers. So if we block with this weapon, you'll see we have 65% physical damage negation. So I'm going to put it up at 100 for testing. And again, there's more down below. I believe maybe these are the only ones that existed in the earlier versions of Souls games, and they added the others later on, like Holy and stuff like that. So they're lower on the list, but we'll start with these four. The SP effects, I'll walk you through those here in a minute, but SP effects are spell effects, and there's a whole list over here on the left. Where is it? SP effect param, that is basically everything that gets done with spell effects, and you can add effects, like passive spell effects are like HP or FP refunded on kills or on hits. Those would be all passive effects. And then behavior effects are like bleed, or if you have the Black Blade health reduction effect, destined death, stuff like that, are all going to be under behavior spell effect. And we'll do those in a minute. We're not going to start with these. Then we're going to scroll a little further down. And you'll see we only have it upgrading up to +10. I believe you can add onto this, but that would involve, creating, all different somber stones and stuff like that. It'd be a pain. No point in doing that. Now we've got poise damage. So if you do poise damage, if you go above 20 or so, you're just going to stun them every time you hit them, basically, right? Especially if you do a charged attack. Um, I don't generally like to go above 20 just because it gets kind of absurd. But we'll add that here. And that directly scales all of the poise damage that the regular charge and skill attacks do. Now this is the damage, right? Physical damage, magic, fire, lightning, and then holy's down below. But this is the base damage that gets done. So that first number that you see. So if we go back, notice attack power right there, physical 142, right? And then plus 56. That plus 56 is based on the scaling, attribute scaling down below. That 142 is base damage, which is what we see in Yapt over here. So you can adjust that. I don't really tend to mess with those because the amount of damage they do is usually pretty good. I usually just add effects and stuff like that. Now, you can modify the damage for stamina because that's essentially like the hammer talisman, the same effect you get, or if you hit them, it drops their stamina. It's good for like knocking their shield to the side and stuff like that. And I haven't found it to be really super overpowered of that as much as you want. As for our test here. Now, guard angle, you can scale this up to 180, and that'll make it so anything ahead of you, anything in front of you, will get blocked when you block. And it's just default angles. So, 360 is everything around you. So 180 is just everything on the front side of you. Guard stability is sort of inverse to how much stamina you lose when you get hit. 90 or above, you're not really going to see any major stamina loss when you get hit, no matter how big it is. Crit multiplier, that's like, I think the strongest crit weapon in the game is the Misericord, which is at 40, which gives you a 140 crit multiplier. So we'll try a little bit above that. Bow distance, if it's not a ranged weapon, you're not going to see any difference here. Down here we've got requirements to use the weapon, and you can set these to whatever you want. You can even zero them out if you want, and you can use them at level 1. No skills required at all. I'm just going to drop it down low enough to where I don't have to worry about it. Parry, attack, and defense will just, increase your chance of parrying and drop the chance that you are parried. And guard, attack, and repel is like you being able to, like if they hit you and you're blocking, it'll bounce back. And same thing in reverse for the attack. Guard bypass means that when you hit them, if you give it a negative number, whatever that negative number is, like if it's negative 50, then half the damage you normally do will go through their shield. So you can set that as high as you want. And then guard resist down here. This is the different types of status effects you can block if you put these on. Like if you're blocking and you have this at 20% of the poison damage status buildup that you normally get is blocked. So if we do 100, you can't get statuses when you're blocking. Now, these checkboxes down here give you a whole bunch of stuff. It's not going to be really important, most of these, and some of these can mess stuff up. Like if you can wield an arrow slot or bolt slot, that's going to mess things up for sure. Allow shield buff means you can literally use it as a shield, so you don't want to use that either. The only reason you check any of these down here, like sorcery, pyromancy, incantations, and vow, is you check all those on a staff or a seal if you want to be able to use it for incantations and sorcery. Right? So it's really cool to just have one weapon that you use for both, which is what I did, I believe, for the dragon seal in the current mods that I've got. One thing you will want to check is buffable. Normally, this is unchecked on any weapon that has built-in status effects, but you can check it back, and then you can put stuff like Black Thumb Blade or Poison Armament, stuff like that. You can put it on your weapon even though it's already got effects. So we will check that. Can hit Ghost Enemy. That allows you to hit some things that you can't normally hit. So I do check that. Prevent affinity change. You can uncheck that. And you do have to have the different affinities set in a different area to be able to get much benefit out of this. But, it's not going to hurt anything for checking. Toughness correction is hyper armor, I believe. So you can play with that if you want. I usually just leave it alone because I gave myself a bunch of poise anyway, so it doesn't make a big difference. Urgency avoidance possible is whether you can roll out things. Hidden in cutscene, if you uncheck that, it'll show it when you're in a cutscene, if you're into that sort of thing. Here's the guard absorption for Holy. It's way down below all the others, I don't know why. And then your Holy damage right below it. I mean, again, I think it's just because they added all this later. And your guard resist for Sleep and Madness. And Frostbite. Here's your Ash of War, which you don't need to mess with in this case. Weapon type, and then up above it's got damage type and stuff like that. You don't generally have to mess with any of this. Affinity price is the cost for upgrading it. You can drop that if you want. And we can allow changing the Ash of War if you want. And then these unique weapons, you can actually change the Ash of War on them. This is good for stuff like, it's a good example. The Wing of Stealth, where the heavy charged attack shoots projectiles out, which is really cool. But say you don't like the Ash of War on it, you want to have that along with a good Ash of War, like a Flame of the Red Mains or something like that. You can have both of those at once because you can change the Ash of War on a unique weapon. So you switch that to allow change just in case you want to mess with it later. But you can't always revert it back to the unique Ash of War in the game. Got your stealth attack multiplier down here. If you want damage that you do when they don't see you to be higher. Similar to the crit up above, and they do stack, I believe, but it's just the changes to that. Now this is the end of this list, but there's a lot more that you can do to this particular weapon, and I'll go through some of that real quick. For most of these, you want to check bullet. See, there's like Moonveil and Sword of Milos in here, and a bunch of other ones. If it's got anything that shoots out, a lot of the times it'll have a listing here. In this case, it's got that big blast that shoots out during the Ashur War, I believe. And you can increase range on this, speed that it comes out, stuff like that. The big thing that I use this particular part for is penetrate map. So things like the Great Blade Phalanx and stuff like that, where it normally, if you go through a fog wall or you walk through a doorway or something, it normally destroys those. But if you check the is penetrate map checkbox on those, it'll stop that, which is pretty great. So this is a good area to go to if you want to add things to it, or you want it to go through enemies, stuff like that. That's all this is for. Alright, now we're going to go to ATK param underscore PC. This is where the good stuff's at. And normally you'll see 1 to 3 entries in here, but the Axe of Godric is a very complicated weapon with a lot of different moves and a lot of different parts of its Ashur War. So you're going to see a bunch of entries in here, and I'll walk you through a couple of things I like to change. So number 1, what I like to do is I like to check this box here. It is considered special attack for asset destruction, and then damage object. I like to max that out. Now that won't change how much damage it does to an enemy. All it'll do is make it so you can destroy objects, right? So like those statues that you have to like lure bears over and stuff like that, rune bears over to destroy stuff, it will make it so the weapon attack itself will destroy those, which is super handy. Or if you need to destroy a barricade to get through it, or sometimes you can like get shortcuts out of it and stuff. It's really cool. So I always check these two, or check the one box and max out damage to objects. And you get a lot of fun out of that. Now you can also change the stagger level for these attacks here. So instead of a short stagger, if we want it to be, let's swap it to an air juggle stagger. So it just blows people up into the air when you set it off. And you can also disable their roll's ability to save them. Here. Disable no damage. There's a bunch of cool stuff you can do in here, but those are the big ones. And then I'm going to go through all of them and do the same thing. You can see this is the charge attack. The conditional category will sort of give you a hint as to what each part of these are. This is one of the regular attacks, probably part of a combo. This is part of a charge attack as well, maybe a follow-up. Usually when you see it hop up in number here, usually that means it's transitioning over to the Ash of War. Yep, see we got conditional category skill attack. That means this part and below is all parts of the Ash of War. So we'll do the same thing for it. You'll notice I'm not changing the stagger level for the ones that say none. Usually if it says none, it's some sort of like, you know, like preparation part of the attack or something like that, something that doesn't do damage. I don't generally like to add stagger levels. Alright, we got all these done. And I can show you the SP effects real quick. SP effect program right here. Not every weapon is going to have any effects. And in this case, it doesn't have any custom effects, which is fine. Although you do see Godric's Great Rune in here. If we scroll down, you'll see that we have 5 to all stats. And we can actually modify that, and then when we use Godric's Great Rune with a Rune Arc, it'll actually, whatever we change these stats to, it'll add that. So if you want to do 10 of each stat or something like that, you can do that in here. In this case, though, I'm just going to go back to Equip Param Weapon where we started. I'm going to show you the SP effects in here. We're going to add some really cool stuff. Alright, so right now it has none at all. We're going to fix that. So, first passive effect. Going to add Restore HP on Kill from the Serpent's Curve Sword. Going to add that as a passive effect. We're going to add the Sacrificial Axe's Restore FP on Kill. And we're going to add Great Stars Restore HP on Hit. Alright, that's our passives, and then we're going to add a few regular effects. My favorite here is going to be the Destined Death effect. And if you hover over them, you should see I don't know if you guys can see on your end, but when you hover over them, it'll show what they actually are labeled. You can actually, if you forget them, we can hop over to the SPFX. Here we are. See, these are the death blights, frostbites, all the different levels of frostbite stuff. Scarlet rot, poison. So whichever one you want to add. In this case, let me see if bleed's on. Or we could do sleep. Yeah, let's do sleep in case we hit him and it doesn't kill him. We can just click this right here, copy it, and that's the reference number we need. So we'll go back to the weapon. Now when we hover over it, it says Sleep High Edition plus 0. And that will automatically scale up when you upgrade it. So I always add the plus 0 as the first one. Got sleep on there. What else should we do? Let's do Deathblight in case we're fighting a invader. Alright, so now we got all our effects. Just go to File and then hit Save. Alright, so now all we have to do is close out of the game, and when we start it back, instead of starting the game normally, we're going to start the actual mod loader itself. Mod Engine 2 underscore launcher, I believe is the executable name. If you set it up properly, and it's pointing to the mod folder that has your new file that you were just editing in it, it should launch it with your new settings that you just made. Alright, so one thing you'll notice right away is our guarded damage negation is 100 across the board with a 90 guard boost. That means that our changes have taken effect, right? Our attribute scaling D across the board, that's because it's a plus 0, and set 30 as all our scaling, right? But it's everything. It's not just one thing. So it's actually going to have pretty good damage. You'll notice it's 142 plus 41. I believe it was in the 40s before. So it's about the same. And as your stats increase, you'll see a big difference. Because it's, quality weapons always scale higher or better at high levels. Let's go test it out. You'll notice we can buff it now, which is good. Don't take any damage, or really any stamina damage when we get hit. You see our HP and FP regained when we hit him there? And you'll notice that we just destroyed landscape environment stuff when he hit, which is that environmental destruction I'm talking about. We'll hit a tougher enemy here, see if we can show off some other effects. Yep, see the destined death effect? Still hitting him, and it snuck him right away. And there's our air juggle. There it is again. Alright, let's see what happens to these trees over here. Lumberjacking them. Worked. We've done the same thing to some other ones as well. I did the same to Moonvale. I also increased the range. Pretty good. as you can see, it's a lot more interesting when you turn that environmental damage on. You can really blast through some stuff, make your own shortcuts a lot of the time. It just does a lot of cool stuff. See if I can find a boss I haven't killed so we can test out the status effects. Also increased the range of poison mist, which is pretty cool. And I added Deathblight to it. So if I use it on invaders, they actually get the full death effect and the roots come up from underneath them and stuff. It's really cool. Show you what I meant about the phalanxes here. See how they go through stuff now? And if all you wanted was the information, there's nothing really else to tell you, unless you want to see the effects. So, you know, if you're done with the video, that's good. Leave a like or whatever. Alright, here we go. Another thing I did as a test is Blessed Dew Talisman. I think I changed it from +4 health per second up to 4% health per second, which adds a whole bunch of regen. So you can modify stuff like that. Bandit boots here. If you look at my resistances, it adds a lot of resistances and poise. Do stuff like that. You know, I can add walkthroughs for all that stuff too. Alright, I'll go ahead and show you the poison mist range as well.